For 20 years, Robin Williams had a secret that even his closest friends didn't know about. Every single month, he would disappear for hours, and when his manager finally followed him, what he discovered made him break down in tears. It was a cold February morning in 1993 when David Steinberg, Robin's longtime manager, decided he'd had enough of the mystery. For years, Robin had been blocking out random dates on his calendar with nothing but a red X. No explanation, no location, just unavailable, written in his own handwriting. The pattern was always the same. Once or twice a month, Robin would finish whatever he was working on, a film set, a comedy show, an interview, and then he'd vanish for 3 to 4 hours. His security team knew where he went, but they'd been sworn to absolute secrecy. Even Robin's wife had stopped asking questions years ago. But on this particular day, David's curiosity finally won. He followed Robin's car from their office in San Francisco, staying far enough back to avoid detection. What he saw next would change everything he thought he knew about the man he'd worked with for over a decade. Robin's car pulled into the parking lot of St. Mary's Children's Hospital in the Mission District. This wasn't a publicity stunt. There were no cameras, no reporters, no hospital administrators waiting with fake oversized checks. Robin parked in a regular visitor spot, pulled a baseball cap low over his face, and walked through a side entrance that most people didn't even know existed. David sat in his car, stunned. He watched Robin disappear into the building, and then he did something he'd never done before. He called the hospital's main desk and asked if Robin Williams was scheduled for any kind of appearance or event that day. The receptionist sounded confused.
David hung up and waited. 3.5 hours later, Robin emerged from the same side door. His eyes were red. He'd been crying. But there was also something else on his face, a profound sense of peace that David rarely saw in his client, even after Robin's biggest professional successes. What David didn't know, what almost nobody knew, was that Robin Williams had been making these secret hospital visits since 1982, shortly after his son Zachary was born. Something about becoming a father had awakened in Robin an almost obsessive need to help children who were suffering. But he didn't want the attention, the press coverage, or the credit. He just wanted to make sick kids laugh. Inside St. Mary's that day, Robin was in room 407, sitting on the floor next to a 7-year-old girl named Emma Chen. Emma had been battling leukemia for 2 years, and the chemotherapy had taken everything from her. Her hair, her energy, and worst of all, her smile. Her parents had stepped out to grab coffee, leaving Emma alone with her iPad, watching old episodes of Mork and Mindy. She'd discovered the show a few weeks earlier and had become obsessed with the weird alien character who talked funny and made everyone laugh. That's when Robin had knocked on her door, still wearing his baseball cap, and asked in his normal voice, "Excuse me, is this Earth?" Emma had looked up, confused. She didn't recognize the man at first. "Because I'm looking for a girl named Emma," Robin continued. "I'm from the planet Ork, and we got a transmission that she needed some jokes. Is that you?" It took Emma exactly 3 seconds to realize who was standing in her hospital room. Her mouth fell open, but no sound came out.
David hung up and waited. 3.5 hours later, Robin emerged from the same side door. His eyes were red. He'd been crying. But there was also something else on his face, a profound sense of peace that David rarely saw in his client, even after Robin's biggest professional successes. What David didn't know, what almost nobody knew, was that Robin Williams had been making these secret hospital visits since 1982, shortly after his son Zachary was born. Something about becoming a father had awakened in Robin an almost obsessive need to help children who were suffering. But he didn't want the attention, the press coverage, or the credit. He just wanted to make sick kids laugh. Inside St. Mary's that day, Robin was in room 407, sitting on the floor next to a 7-year-old girl named Emma Chen.
Emma had been battling leukemia for 2 years, and the chemotherapy had taken everything from her. Her hair, her energy, and worst of all, her smile. Her parents had stepped out to grab coffee, leaving Emma alone with her iPad, watching old episodes of Mork and Mindy. She discovered the show a few weeks earlier and had become obsessed with the weird alien character who talked funny and made everyone laugh. That's when Robin had knocked on her door, still wearing his baseball cap, and asked in his normal voice, "Excuse me, is this Earth?" Emma had looked up, confused. She didn't recognize the man at first. "Because I'm looking for a girl named Emma,"
David Steinberg only learned the full truth because he finally confronted Robin about it 3 weeks after that day he'd followed him. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" David had asked. "Do you know how much good publicity this would generate? How many people would respect you even more?" Robin's response was immediate and firm. "Because that would ruin it. The second this becomes about me, about my image, about getting credit, that's the second it stops being about the kids. I don't go there to be Robin Williams, the celebrity. I go there to be a guy who makes kids laugh. That's it." But Emma Chen wasn't Robin's only secret patient. Over the course of 20 years, Robin made unauthorized visits to children's hospitals all across America. In San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, Boston, anywhere he was working, he found a local children's hospital and he showed up. He had a system. He'd call the hospital's child life specialist department, identify himself, and ask for a list of kids who were having the hardest time, the ones who'd stopped responding to treatment, the ones who'd given up hope, the ones who barely spoke anymore. Then he'd show up unannounced and spend hours with them. He never did it for the cameras. He specifically requested that hospitals not publicize his visits. He wanted to meet the kids who needed him most, not perform for audiences. Marcus Rivera was one of those kids. He was 9 years old, fighting a brain tumor, and he'd stopped talking to everyone. His parents, his doctors, even the therapy dogs that came to visit patients. He just lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting to die.
Robin spent 6 hours with Marcus one rainy afternoon in March 1998. For the first 2 hours, Marcus didn't say a single word. He just watched this strange man do voices, make faces, and tell stories. But then Robin started talking about his own fears, about how scared he got before performing, about the panic attacks he sometimes had, about the times he felt like he wasn't good enough. "You know what I realized?" Robin said, sitting on the edge of Marcus's bed. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you're scared, but you keep going anyway. And you, Marcus, you're the bravest person I've ever met." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. "I don't feel brave," he whispered, the first words he'd spoken in 3 weeks. "That's because you're doing it," Robin said. "Brave people never feel brave when they're being brave. They just feel scared. But they do it anyway." Marcus died 2 weeks later. But according to his mother, those last 2 weeks were different. He talked again. He smiled again. He asked questions about heaven and told his parents he loved them. At Marcus's funeral, his mother opened his small hand one final time before they closed the casket. Inside was a folded piece of paper. It was a note from Robin that said, "I promised I'd be here. You were brave all the way to the end. I'm proud of you. Robin."
Robin had somehow known Marcus wasn't going to make it, so he'd written the note during his visit and told Marcus to hold on to it for the hard days. Marcus had held on to it all the way to the end. These stories should have made headlines. Robin Williams, one of the world's most famous comedians, spending his free time bringing joy to dying children, with no cameras, no publicity, no recognition. It was the kind of story that could have transformed his public image even more than it already was. But Robin didn't want that. In fact, he made the hospitals sign confidentiality agreements. He didn't want sick children being turned into props for his public relations. He wanted authentic moments with kids who needed to laugh,
and he knew that couldn't happen if everyone was watching. The secret only started to come out after Robin's death in 2014. Nurses began sharing stories on social media. Parents who'd stayed quiet for years, respecting Robin's wishes, finally felt free to talk about the man who'd given their dying children a few hours of pure joy. One nurse from Boston Children's Hospital wrote, "I worked night shift for 12 years, and I saw Robin Williams in our ICU at least 15 times. He always came late at night, after visiting hours, because he wanted to meet the kids who were too sick to have regular visitors. He would sit with kids who were unconscious, just talking to them, telling them jokes, hoping they could hear him. I once saw him spend 2 hours with a comatose teenager, doing every character voice he'd ever created, just in case the boy could hear him somewhere in there." Another parent shared, "My daughter was 11 and had been in the hospital for 8 months. She'd given up. She wouldn't eat, wouldn't talk, wouldn't try. Then one day, Robin Williams walked into her room dressed as Mrs. Doubtfire, the full costume, the mask, everything. He stayed for 4 hours. She laughed so hard she cried. It was the turning point in her recovery. She's 24 now, healthy and strong. We never got to thank him properly."
The most heartbreaking story came from a child life specialist who'd worked with Robin for over a decade arranging these secret visits. She revealed that Robin had a special fund set up to pay for the medical expenses of families who couldn't afford treatment. He'd done it quietly, through anonymous donations, but she'd been the one managing it. Over 20 years, Robin Williams had paid for the treatments of over 50 children whose families were facing bankruptcy from medical bills. "He made me promise never to tell them it was him," she said. "He wanted the families to believe it was just hospital charity or insurance coming through. He said if they knew it was from him, they'd feel obligated to thank him, and he didn't want gratitude. He just wanted the kids to get better." When Robin Williams died, children's hospitals across America held private memorial services, not public events, private gatherings where nurses, doctors, and former patients who'd survived shared their Robin Williams stories. At St. Mary's in San Francisco, they created a permanent memorial in the children's wing. It's a simple plaque that reads, "Robin Williams believed every child deserved to laugh. He gave his time, his talent, and his heart to the kids who needed it most. He asked for nothing in return except their smiles." Below the plaque is a shelf filled with notes, drawings, and photos from the hundreds of children Robin visited over 2 decades. There are pictures of him juggling in hospital gowns, doing handstands in ICU rooms, making shadow puppets for kids too weak to sit up.
One note, written in shaky handwriting by a child who clearly struggled to hold the pen, simply says, "Thank you for making me laugh when I thought I forgot how." David Steinberg, the manager who'd followed Robin to the hospital that day in 1993, spoke at a private memorial service after Robin's death. He was asked why Robin never wanted recognition for his hospital work. "I asked him that once," David said, his voice cracking. "I said, 'Robin, this could be your legacy. People should know about this.' And you know what he told me? He said, 'My legacy is going to be the movies I made and the laughs I gave. But these hospital visits, these kids, that's not my legacy. That's my privilege. I don't deserve credit for doing something that makes me happier than anything else in my life.'" Robin Williams spent 20 years bringing light to the darkest places. He made dying children laugh. He gave hope to parents who'd run out of hope. He sat with kids who had nobody else, and he made them feel seen, valued, and worthy of joy. And he did it all in secret, because to Robin, the reward wasn't fame or recognition. The reward was hearing a sick child laugh. The reward was seeing a parent smile through tears. The reward was knowing that for a few hours, he'd made someone's impossible situation just a little bit easier to bear. That's the Robin Williams the world didn't see. The man behind the comedy, behind the fame, behind the spotlight. A man who understood pain so deeply that he dedicated himself to easing it in others, especially the most vulnerable among us. His secret is out now,
And the world is better for knowing that while Robin Williams made millions of people laugh through his movies and his comedy, he saved his best performances for audiences of one: sick children who needed a reason to smile one more